Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a Ko-fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Steve on the level, Thomas van der Zander, Cannabear, Gary Hughes, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Amish Battle Merch, Sensual Goat, Mitch Kennedy, Rod the Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Mails 24, Unimento, Iron 26, Endless, Golden McKinnon, Retro Bill, Level Plain Poem, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Yun Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Did you all enjoy the politics show? Obviously, some of you in the Discord server were there on Friday, right? Yes, Nathan, we really enjoyed it. Oh, well, I enjoyed it too. Could have done with being a bit shorter, I felt.
Yeah, that can't be healthy.
Yeah, you lose track of time. I might, so it's more productive, see if I can have a word with one of the mods there and see if I can arrange that it's done for a much shorter period of time, but in a much more organised way. So the first time I went there, they had like an arrangement where, you know, they'd pick someone out from the group of people who were chit-chatting amongst themselves and they'd have a back and forth with me. When I was listening back to the Friday show, I'm getting narky with someone I'm talking to because I'm assuming they're interrupting me, and it's just one of the white knights, and the mods are, you know, obviously flicking up and down through 100 people trying to find who it is. And the person's just instigating a bit of audio chaos where necessary. So to avoid that and make it more productive, so I'm not having to repeat the same thing 8 or 9 times with a jeering crowd of white knights going, "You're not addressing his question." I'm like, what? It's been addressed 6 times. Why are we having to do it a 7th? Because you've piped up. And the guy then gets his chance to repeat the question again. So you're listening to this going, the first time I went there, it wasn't like this. So maybe if I say, look, rather than doing 3 hours, perhaps, I don't know, if AJ or someone can monitor that way of doing it so that it's more organised and we get more done in an hour.
Well, wouldn't they set up a queue? You know what I mean? Like have a queue for people to have questions to ask.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I'll either go in slightly earlier or go in slightly later, but for a limited time, you know, and then after the fact, maybe we'll hang around in that Discord server like we do, but going in for 4 hours, waiting for random Joe to pluck up the courage, it's like, no, we'll sit on stage till someone comes up, then everyone has to shut up while we listen to their question.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to, I mean, you can do it that way. It just seems really disorganized. And besides, if you had a queue, the person could ask their question, they could be muted. And then if you choose to, you could delegate the question to a member of the panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you changing the way things are done here?
I think it's fine. It's just the way it's now turning into on the politics server is just no different to our own server, other than literally I have no control over it. So it just drags the process out that little bit longer. Well, like you say, it's not really healthy for me to stick around doing that for 4 hours when I can, you know, drag an hour's worth of material out of those 4 hours if I was to condense it into short videos. That's not to say that it's not useful to hear people going through the same thing 6 or 7 times because they can't cope with the answer. Maybe that's also useful. People seem to want it to happen for whatever reason. I don't know why. It seems nuts to me. But, if that's what they want there, fine. But by the same token, it's like if it was done in a more condensed manner, I think that would be beneficial to everybody.
Well, it would definitely be better for you because I was listening to that, and nobody should be treated the way that you were.
I've got no issues with the way I was treated. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, it's the way that they're denying a fact and then trying to put it in an if supposition to deny it. It's so weird.
I can cope with that. So, in one instance, the guy's like, I can accept the concept of latitude, or I deny the concept of latitude based on it being your claim. Those were the two positions we had last time in regards to the main argument that we're currently having. Well, in both instances, if you deny latitude based on it being Nathan Oakley's claim, then you deny latitude for those reasons. So you haven't got a globe anymore to believe in, because you haven't got the lines wrapped around it. Yeah? In the other instances, I accept it, but only on the basis that it's conceptual. In other words, when we're measuring it flat, it's just conceptual, the idea that we get a flat baseline. Like, well, if it's conceptual, it's conceptual. Your globe's conceptual, therefore we're not standing on your globe. So I don't care what reason they give to deny latitude. Well, I will tentatively accept it, but only as a concept. Well, then you're tentatively accepting that you haven't got a globe measurement then. These measurements that you suggest you're standing on the surface of the model aren't really inexistent in physical reality because they're just conceptual according to your defense now. So it doesn't really matter where they go. They've only got two real positions to take. One is denying latitude. Well, if you deny latitude, what's wrapped around your globe, you haven't got anything to believe in. Or you accept latitude measurement because that's exactly what it is. When they go, well, no, I'll just accept that bit as being conceptual, we're back to the square one. Well, then you deny latitude. So they've got nowhere to go. I don't mind them putting it into a suppositional if statement when it's a measurement that they must have for their globe to exist.
It's insane because I've been thinking about it more and more. What do you expect them? How do you expect them to act? They have nowhere to go. You got them in a position where they have no wiggle room. And like you just keep driving that home. If you were in the opposite position, you would feel the same way. They can't do anything.
And one guy even told us, if I accept the measurement, you'll just welcome me to flat Earth. And I'm like, well, define the measurement. Well, it's the reference plane. You're like, welcome to flat Earth. They know they're screwed. They know the position. They know Earth's measured flat. Half the people in the advanced argument know the accepted position is how it's measured. And Thunderfoot's just recently moved things forward considerably quicker by showing it them. So all these numpties denying it's conceptual. You're like, Thunderfoot's out there measuring this stuff. You don't have to like it.
He shows up with a freaking protractor. Great
spirit
job,
level.
Thunderfoot.
Yeah. He shows up with his spirit level, with his protractor, and starts measuring angles off a flat plane. In the dark. Like, that's going to matter.
Well, it would have to be in the dark, Nathan. In all fairness to him, there's no stars in the light.
Didn't matter. He said that he didn't capture the footage of him actually taking the angle measurement. So here's him representing it at a different time at dusk. You're like, if you're representing it at a different time and it's not the actual measurement, I can accept that, right? I'm not a glober. I'm not going to go unless you're physically filming the one that you actually drew the line with. So it doesn't really matter. But when he replicates what he's doing, he's like, I've got the laser pointing up to Polaris and I'm drawing a line like this. And you're like, okay, you're showing me from the third person what you did in the first person when you actually took the measurement. I will accept that. But when you step out of the actual measurement being the thing that's being captured, you can have bloody studio lights, can't you? It doesn't matter then, does it? He's not actually doing the measurement at that point. So it's like, well, if you're just going to show us, you can show us in good lighting. But he doesn't. Why? Well, because he doesn't want to show you the flat Earth, straight, horizontal baseline that's part of the angle. He doesn't mention it. The only time it gets stark lighting is when he's transposing it into hell and mumbling about how you can tell yourself it's the same. I'm going to get a coffee. Hopefully you'll chat amongst yourselves.
Yeah, that might be it. I can't say that it's not, but it could also be that his replication of the measurement, he was trying to give realism to it. I don't know.
No, he was just putting that out there because, John, that's all some people need. You're joking, right? You know that. They're not going to look any further. They're going to get their confirmation, even though he's confirming Earth is flat. They're not seeing it that way. We are, and it's glorious. They'll catch on eventually. Really got them in a freaking position where they can't move. Remember when Black Swan, they can't go refraction, even though we know what that means. They always had some way to wiggle away into something else. Not now.
Well, there is no escape from the reference. You know, the conceptual unit ain't their problem. The reference is.
It's just fun to listen to when Nathan has him against the corner, against the ropes like that, and there's nowhere to go.
You know, for them though, like that's their world falling apart in that moment that you're giggling at them. Like everything's falling apart for them at that moment, you know.
It don't have to be, John. It could be their eyes could be opening up to a glorious world that they never knew. Everything's brand new now. Oh, I'm not on a globe. Glory to God.
Well, you could look at it that way, and that is probably the more healthy way to look at it. But the way most people look at it is through the lens of fear.
Yeah, and it's the constant barrage of space. Look, I was in a deli yesterday, right? Waiting for a bacon, egg, and cheese and a coffee. And I hear this guy talking how he met Neil deGrasse Tyson. He must have had something to do in Long Island. And the guy was like blown away, like, oh, he's amazing. His knowledge on space. And I was about to ruin his day, but I didn't. I just said, I'll just laugh to myself, knowing that outer space does not exist. There is no vacuum. But he thinks there is.
And I will give Neil deGrasse Tyson his knowledge on a place that doesn't exist is second to none. Second to none.
Yes, Narnia expertise is very valued. Whether it'll be valued in 50 years' time is a different matter.
But you had to hear this guy, Nathan. Oh, he was gloating and like so excited to tell the deli owner all about this I don't know what they had, some sort of seminar, I guess he was in. The knowledge this guy has, he's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the magic of heliocentrism, isn't it? The ability to mesmerize someone with the information, which is quite fantastical.
I should have dropped the question on him. I should have said, excuse me, is there any possible way you can have gas pressure without containment?
Yeah, it's not your place to necessarily interject on another man's soapbox, though, is it, Neil?
No, but yeah, it's like I heard it. It's like your ears are in tune to certain things, you know? Like, oh boy.
Preaching.
Like a NASA shirt. I would have never noticed a NASA shirt freaking 10 years ago.
Okay. This is their religion, Neil. Those are their gods and their popes and their representatives, aren't they? We call Neil deGrasse Tyson one of the priests for good reason, because he is. So when people wear a NASA t-shirt, it's just like them affirming their faith. It's like wearing a cross.
Yeah, that's correct.
And some people would say, yeah, I was brought up a Catholic, or I was brought up Church of England, or, whatever their religious denomination was when they went through school. But say, but I'm not really that religious, which means they don't go to church anymore. Right? Well, the same can be said for people I'm chatting to on Omi. I'm not thoroughly attached to this heliocentric worldview. Yeah, I was taught it in school. Doesn't mean I'm a staunch heliocentrist. But there are people out there that'll stick the NASA t-shirt on and sit in a public place telling you all about how wonderful space is. How amazing it is.
Or we could also argue about how rockets land perfectly in the same spot vertically. Hey,
Why?
you got flat earthers doing that too. It's kind of alarming.
Oh, I see. You're objecting to that. Yeah, I would object too. Who cares? I don't even watch that stuff anymore. It just doesn't hold any interest for me.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, what? Okay, so rockets, even if you do prove that rockets can't land, how are you going to prove that? How are you going to prove a negative like that? Why even? I don't know.
We're talking about physics, John. Stevie.
It's an intentional red herring. That's all it is. It's there for you to chase.
No matter what they put there for people to chase, if they would always go to where, what did we say? We started this 6, 7 months ago about how Earth is, going on the front foot forward. You cannot deny the fact that it's measured flat, and you'll stop chasing these things because it's the end game.
Yeah, but what you've got to realise is that the things that are in the narrative of your normal skank and file flat earther are there for a reason. They're not going to allow, at least us initially, while we're all peddling feast and nonsense, to gain some traction, only to then censor it. It's like, well, why would you need to? Well, you need to because the flat earthers are getting to know too much about how the nature of at that point, you've got to censor them. Before then, we're all talking about ice walls and rockets in vacuums and all of these red herrings. But they all serve the same purpose, don't they? They distract you from the real argument. Boats going over the edge distracts you from the failures of Earth curve edges at the horizon. Ice walls distract you from the expansion of the known territories to date. Waving flags. I haven't finished, Neil. Bloody hell. Waving flags on the moon is an argument that suggests we've already got a sky vacuum. Well, they debunk these things with their own version of a debunking that includes the main aspect of the narrative included within the debunking. So, skeptics say the flag on the moon wouldn't have been waving because there was no gas to wave it. Like, that debunking is custom written for you to accept that there's no gas on the moon because of the sky vacuum, of course, when you're looking back at Earth, and it's just the fact that the flag would be waving when it shouldn't be, but within an acceptance of a framework that has a gas void area that's waving or not waving a flag. You're like, the whole place and the area they're looking back on called Earth is fake. But we're going to argue about whether or not the rockets could blast off vacuums and whether or not flags would wave in vacuums. You're like, in vacuums? Bloody hell. People don't know that these controlled opposition narratives are there for a reason.
It wasn't done, John.
I was 99% done when John stepped in. I was about 40% done when you stepped in.
Hold on. John, before you go, this drove me crazy. I listened quickly to Patricia Steer and this guy Santos Bonacci. Is that his name? The synchronicity guy?
Yeah.
This freaking moron turns around and he says you could call Earth a sphere even though it's flat. Like, what's going on? The nonsense. It really frustrated me. Like, all the work we're doing is nobody's listening.
Was that an interview from about 8 years ago by any chance?
Listen, it was live.
It was live?
Did a live freaking podcast. Absolutely. I was in the chat.
Oh, okay. It might have been a premiering stream from 8 years ago.
Hold on a minute. Someone said the Earth is. Say that again, because it didn't. My brain's just not accepting it. Sorry.
He said you could call it a sphere, even though it's flat.
That's just stupid.
That's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just stupid. Go ahead, Wandek.
I'm saying that's what they do anyway, isn't it?
It's the phrasing. You can believe Earth's a sphere, even though it's measured flat, has a very different impact to you can say Earth's a sphere, even though it's flat. You're like, what do you mean you can say it's a sphere? That's completely in contradiction. You can calculate a sphere with Haversine conversions off a flat plane and elevation angle measurements converted into a sphere Earth protractor through the celestial sphere would be a long and convoluted way of suggesting how you can infer sphericity from flat Earth measurements. All accurate statements, but you just say, you can say Earth's a sphere even though it's flat. No, you can't.
I think, like, a lot of people don't realize what measurements are and why they're so important. You would think when they look up a definition and it says reference, they would look into that more.
Yeah, people drilling down on what a measurement is what we've had people bracing against us from our own side, seemingly. Who knows if they actually are or not. But people bracing against it. Even while we were getting close to sniffing around what we're currently saying, we had people bracing against it. Just an angle, right? No, it's not just an angle. It's an angle with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. It's a flat Earth angle, is what it is. But before we even got there, we were being told we were wrong. Interesting, huh?
Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
What? Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm just trying out this microphone.
Sounds good.
Good.
I just found it weird that people that would assert that all of history is a lie, and the proof that history is a lie is the lack of evidence of proof that history is a lie. The people that would take that position would attack measurement is, I guess I should have expected it.
Yeah, they don't understand where the burden lies. That's the problem.
This story is just a story. It is.
Unless it's backed with primary source evidence. Then you can make a determination based on the standard of the primary source evidence that's being presented, be it testimonial, a first-hand account, evidence with documentation, with dates attached to it. There's various different standards when you get to the primary source evidence, and historic standards are very different to the standards that we use. So I don't poo-poo historic standards, it's just in this particular arena, the historic standards for what we get are garbage for the stories that we are told for being on a sphere, as you'd expect when you realise that we're not. It also doesn't mean I automatically agree with the other historical standards for major events in history, like wars. Plenty of it's garbage, history is written by the winners and all that sort of stuff still applies, but the same thing applies if you were going to research any of those historical subjects. You just do your primary source research.
That's a tricky one, because you could say, well, there was a big tree and then there wasn't a big tree, and there could be two conflicting stories as to why the tree no longer exists, but definitely that doesn't exist anymore. Was it chopped down by an alien, or was it, did it just fall down in the wind?
Yeah, and then you're into looking at the historic accounts for whether or not the tree really did exist.
Yeah, but it's all stories. It's all subjective. But yeah, I don't know if you managed to listen to Level Earth's little cast this week.
Level Earth Observer, Leo.
Yeah, he did one with Tommy Boyd. You remember Tommy Boyd?
I saw a clip. I didn't know what it was, but I think he released a very short clip where he was suggesting that Tommy Boyd, who I don't know who he is, was saying that he knew for 10 years that some of the stuff that we discuss is relevant, but I only saw a 2-minute excerpt that he'd put out. I didn't see the whole interview. I didn't know he'd done a full. I didn't know what the relevance was because he didn't say in the clip. If he'd have said, "I've done a full interview with this guy, you might be interested," I'd probably gone and watched it. But there we go. Tell me all about it.
No, it was quite amusing. I know Tommy Boyd. He used to be a kids presenter, and then he went on to talk radio, and he had some very good arguments. He used to really wind people up with his arguments. But the clip is a 10-year-old clip of him arguing with the people on the radio that the Earth was flat, and it is from 2010 or something like that.
I see. So the clip that he showed that I caught was his radio career dealings with members of the public via phone-in talk radio. That's what the clip must have been then. That makes a lot more contextual sense.
Yeah.
That was January 15th, so you were right, Nathan. 2016. I thought it was live.
I don't know what you're talking about, Neil. What?
The Santos Bonacci and Patricia Steer. I just went to what I was looking at. It says 2016.
Yeah, I remember. I remember her doing it 8 years ago. I probably was in the live audience when she originally did it. Anyway.
I was crucifying a guy from something he said 8 years ago.
Yeah, when Santos went 8 years ago, just to put things into context. Sorry, Craig. That's Neil for you. We'll get back onto this. About 8 years ago, he'd just come across the subject like most of us, although I was probably a couple of years in, 18 months in, something like that. He was reconciling the fact that he'd been talking about star signs and heliocentrism within his rhetoric, but because of understanding how the stars are moving and how they're described, he didn't have that big of a deal transitioning to how it works flat because it was actually simpler for him. But he's still trying to reconcile the idea of being on a globe, and that was the frame of mind that Santos was in when he did that interview. I remember it quite vividly. Anyway, so Adam, or Leo, as his Level Earth Observer, Craig, did he interview him?
Oh yeah, it wasn't an interview. It was actually just, I don't know, it was about half an hour of him during his own show, Tommy Boyd's show, discussing flat Earth. I mean, he said some weird things like he believed in the Flat Earth Society, that they existed to prove something. But I'm sure it was 2010, so this was very early, even at that stage, wasn't it?
I'll have to give it a listen because if he's just...
2010.
Well, that is quite early, yeah. That's preceding all of the main first wave of people by about 4 years. Well, I say first wave, really the second wave, because Matt Powerland, this guy, a few others would be the first wave. But anyway, regardless of this nitty-gritty detail of when people came into the subject, he would be preceding a huge chunk of people, including Debay, me, Jaron. He's preceding all of them if he's doing it in 2010. So it would be fascinating to hear if he's actually seeding the feast of nonsense from Flat Earth Society into the general public. You know what I mean? That would be intriguing. I will have to give it a listen, because I might be hypercritical of him, or even call him a shill.
No, I actually I appreciated what he had to say. It was his argument was based on the fact that if you live on a ball, you're always going downhill whenever you move. And if you go downhill and you start to run, you just get faster and faster. That was the crux of his argument. There was other things he brought up.
Crap argument.
Yeah, but that's wrong, because if you're at the bottom of the ball, everything you do, you're going uphill.
Up and down with respect to a horizontal plane of reference, how will you go downhill?
I will definitely. I will definitely give this a listen, because just by pure chance you're mentioning it right after me saying that there's all sorts of controlled opposition narratives that are put up in false dichotomy that leave an overall premise like space or Earth curve edges intact at the end of the argument. If this guy's giving arguments that lead into what would you do if you were a baller, and someone says you just roll downhill all the time, well, no, your reference is always with respect to the centre of Earth. Now, how do we overcome that 10 years later? We talk about how up and down. Well, John's already done it. You repeat what you just said, John, because this is our overcome, isn't it?
Yeah, up and down is with respect to a horizontal plane of reference, not a curve.
Right. The curve itself would be described from that straight horizontal plane of reference.
Yeah, but you could have up and down if you're inside that ball that's on the screen right now.
Right. But further to that, we're measuring Earth flat. So topographical changes are with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. You've only got to draw out an altitude, what do they call it in Google Earth? An elevation profile. And it shows the reference plane is flat. And all of the heights and deviations from that reference plane are plus or minus from sea level. Sea level. All of these descriptions and measurements come from a flat plane. So it's like, well, if you're going to describe how we'd be rolling downhill, well, yeah, you can roll down hills. But the hill and how hilly it is described with respect to how flat Earth is as a reference. That's how you describe a hill. Yeah? So Earth's flat to describe the hill. There is no automatically inferred hill. In that starting point from a flat earther, arguing that you'd be rolling downhill, it invites an argument to beg the question of sphericity and reposition things with a gravity reference at centre, top dead centre always. As you move round it, your centre of gravity is moving to the centre of Earth. All the 2015 arguments that we heard. Well, think about it. If you're going to start having those contra arguments with the opponents, you've got to have the flat earthers postulating these stupid positions to begin with. And here's this guy 4 years before me seeding the public with these arguments. It sounds like, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. I've not seen it.
Well, you can only have an argument, a valid argument, with two positions. If you're putting the second position forward as a valid position, you've already weakened your own.
Right. Exactly. So why introduce this? And the same kind of applies when you're introducing ice walls. It's like we got there in the end, but with a lot of slop between, you've got their position of a false Earth curve edge for boats to fall over, and they're trying to keep you on the track of boats falling over a pizza pie in the Flat Earth Society narrative when you first get here. Like, okay, well, that wasn't much danger until 8 years down the line when we start figuring it out and putting it in juxtaposition between the two. Look, you've got an edge. Your boats are falling over it. Here's the maths for it. We don't have an edge. 2 years further to that, we're talking about the expansion of the previous territories that were expanded into the current known territories, flat, with the stars. So it's like these positions do weaken their original position, but it takes quite a long time with all the propaganda and censorship in between to stop the masses from getting to that stage quickly. So it doesn't matter that it weakens their position, because initially it sets you off on the red herring track of chasing down ice walls, chasing down edges, chasing down domes.
Believing in models.
Yeah, my brother just told me the ice wall book. Like, okay, so he's in the feast of nonsense no matter what. But you know what frustrates me? When they start talking, it happened Friday too. This guy talking about elevation And no matter how you explain it to them, they're not getting it.
They can't.
Elevation in reference to what?
It's a bit like the Black Swan, but simpler. They can't get it. They want to detach elevation, which by its nature, by its definition, by the word itself, ties it directly and intrinsically to the ground. They've got to deny it as a concept. Okay? So then when we're talking about latitudes wrapped around the globe, it's just conceptual, which it is. But they have to accept that fact. Or, well, no, we've definitely got a globe beneath our feet. We've got measurements of it, and the latitudes are represented for the globe, spherically, by the flat Earth measurements that I'll now get welcome to flat Earth if I accept. They're screwed, Neil. There's nothing they can do. Denying elevation angle measurements or elevation, or that it's with respect to the ground, just puts them in a position to deny their globe, Neil. The other thing I want to start suggesting to people is that when they do come across these proactive arguments where we're told that we need to believe in an ice wall, we're told that we should be chasing down a dome, we're told that we should be explaining why boats fall over edges, start repositioning back onto the person that's actually said the words. I appreciate that they're trying to strawman you with it as a flat earther, but if you immediately put it back on them, you believe there's a dome? No, I'm telling you that you believe in a dome. Why would you be telling me you believe in a dome then? Just reiterate it and put it back. Keep it on them if they've said it. And if they're like, I haven't said that, you're the only one who did say it. Because I certainly didn't. Those words cross your lips, not mine. This is your claim. You believe there's a dome. No, I want you to defend one. Why? You're the one who believes in it. No, I don't believe in it. You're the one that doesn't believe that there is a dome that you don't want to believe in. Just keep it on them the whole time, however much it takes. So accept the charge. It's a flipping of the burden, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Strawmanning you with something like a dome. In reality, you haven't got a sky claim, they have. It's their burden to prove it's a bleeding vacuum, but here you are arguing about whether or not there's a dome, whether or not boats fall over an edge. I haven't got a claim about boats falling over horizons. It's your claim on the globe that you need to assert positively, but you're better off on the front foot with me defending a boat falling off the edge of a pizza pie.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because they're the ones that their boat disappears over an edge. And we're just saying that you can't have gas pressure without containment. And they're saying, so you're saying there's a dome. No, you're saying there's a dome. I'm just saying we can't have gas pressure without containment. Get it on.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey.
Hey. Well, it's good to be back. Nice weekend, hopefully. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curve.
The assertion that a physical geometric obstruction exists requires Earth to be flat.
Yeah, it's a differential from eye level when measuring it with respect to surface level, given that both are parallel with one another and you can calculate the difference when you're raising altitude. They'll need a flat Earth for it.
Raise, you say at altitude?
Yeah,
Hold on,
up.
you're saying raise?
Yeah, when you go up
Well,
with
you can't
respect to
do
a
that on a
plane.
ball.
Yeah, when you go up with respect to the plane. So your height is your height eye level, and it's off surface level. It's right there in the mathematics. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
So, after the first question.
These are still things in 2024 that people believe in, Neil. We still have to keep house.
No.
Fair enough. How's everyone doing in Discord? You've all been a bit quiet this morning. Apart from one deck. Well, that's good to know. Fair enough.
I want to know who's going to violate one deck's list today, which is a brilliant one deck, I must say.
I do
that
like
one
that
deck.
list. That's kind of what I do, is just listen for the trigger words and know what their meanings are. It's a nice list.
Yeah, it's not bad. He's not around at the minute. Hopefully get a rendition of it. I'm just going to close my window. I've got a man drilling right outside it. 1 second.
Did he add north, south, east, and west to that list yet?
When he arrives, I'll ask him. In the meantime, any evidence we can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? Don't all go
And
at
if you're a
once.
baller, well, I was just going to say, and if you believe you live on a sphere, is there any evidence you can have a gas pressure gradient that's not with respect to a horizontal plane of reference?
Yeah, the descriptions of the pressure gradient itself are with respect to a horizontal plane. So Huey is right when he corrected me last time I used this argument without first identifying the antecedent consequent relationship that gas pressure to exist in the first place to then form a delta of a gas pressure gradient would require containment. So once that's been dealt with, the delta of gas pressure in containment can then be addressed as requiring a horizontal plane of reference to describe. So when I first took that on board, I went straight to it without first identifying the requirement of a container to form pressure. And QE was all over it like flies on the proverbial, telling me you didn't actually identify that you'd need a container to have the gas pressure to deal with the gas pressure delta, that's a gradient, with respect to a flat plane. I'm like, yeah, but you need flat plane for it. Like, no, you need containment for it. Then you can describe it with your flat plane once it's formed gradiated pressure after being in containment. And I was like, I'm sure I mentioned it. I went back and listened, and no, I didn't. And you're like, yeah, don't whistle past the graveyard. You've still got to actually point out that the containment is required for you to form the pressure to then form the gradient to then describe it with a flat plane. But yes, we had in this instance already done that.
Even funnier than that, the concept that there is an area that gas is not filling requires Earth to be flat. So you could twist it that way, because their concept of space requires a flat plane.
Show me the dome.
I don't have to.
Also,
I can show you the gas pressure.
You just said there's gas pressure without containment is an impossibility. You're telling me there's containment, so you're saying there's a dome.
No, you didn't hear what I said. The idea that there is an area gas is not filling is a concept from a flat plane.
My God, your mic's awful, John. Making a horrendous amount of noise.
I was just going to...
He was just going to say when he decided to drop abruptly in the middle of a sentence. Got some new slides. Decided to go up a resolution. So previously, when the show was running in 1080p, I would make a habit of making like a 380 or whatever the resolution that would match the resolution of the screen. But for ages, we've been running at a high resolution, 1440p. So there's no point in having a fairly low definition video running in the background as slides. So I've put a higher resolution one up. So not that anybody's going to give a toss that the slideshow that goes by on the show is slightly higher quality and a bit less fuzzy. But it is. I'm just letting you know. I have gone to that effort.
Is my mic any better? I'm sorry.
There's nothing wrong when you're talking. It's just as you open it or close it, there's this horrendous scratching, muffling, grumbling noise. So if you're opening it and closing it while Neil's talking, we get that noise through the top of what he's saying. Why you talking's fine.
Just done what. Sorry, Nathan, I'm driving. But what you was just saying there about referring to the gas pressure gradient needed a level frame of reference to even talk about that gradient. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Why did you want to add it to the list?
No, I was just not trying to dismiss. Something just came into my mind because I work with gas pressure and cylinders, and some of the cylinders I have are actually, they are spherical, say, with gas in them. So that hasn't got a level frame of reference to measure any gradient.
No.
But I presume you could still have a gradient.
No. How is atmospheric oxymoronic sphere-shaped air pressure described? What do they describe it with respect to?
The flat plane.
Yeah, but how? With what? What would they say?
Oh well, they would just say that the the air's wrapping around this supposed globe, right?
Yeah, but they'd give it in a certain measurement, wouldn't they?
So 760 toward the sea level, or
So there it is.
PSI.
There it is. Say it one more time.
760 toward sea level, or 14.7 psi.
Yeah, and it would change with that with a variation of what? If it's that pressure at sea level, the description of the varying pressure. Would...
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
Not yes. So I'm leading you to tell us.
As you increase in altitude.
Altitude.
Supposed globe.
There it is.
Yes.
Well, how is altitude described?
Off a flat plane.
Just one at a time. Angels, how is altitude described? If I was going to describe something's height, what would it give the measurement as?
From mean sea level.
Yeah, in feet with respect to sea level, or meters with respect to sea level. Yeah, so you need a flat plane to describe these pressure gradients, because that is precisely how they'll be described. Like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't matter if we're talking about weather or pressure gradients, it's all described off a flat plane, because Earth's measured flat. For everything. TVH says, Hello, Nathan. I enjoy every moment you was on Politics Server last Friday. It was so good. You kept me entertained all weekend. My stomach is still hurting from all the beratings. Thank you, Mr. Legend. Wow, thank you very much. Couldn't get much more complimentary to TVH. I'm blushing. Thank you for the super chat.
Also, the Glebers will argue, but it's a pressure gradient, therefore, it gets thinner and thinner until it's space. Well, actually, it's not equalized. If you look at the ratio, so 761 over at sea level, which is our Earth, compared to their space vacuum, which is 10 to the minus 17 tall, that's an insane ratio that is not equalized.
Well, no, you almost whistled past the graveyard, but you expanded on it enough to make me think that you do understand what I'm about to say to you. At the point that you described your opponent's position as fading to a vacuum, that's a straight-up second law of thermodynamics violation when they say that. The moment they say the gas pressure dissipates into a vacuum, no, gas fills space. Yeah. That's a violation of the second law when they say that.
Yeah, true. And also, how do you make a vacuum without a container again?
You don't.
Exactly. So it can't exist.
Well, yeah, but their dissipation into a gradiated vacuum, as they describe it, is the violation of the natural law that requires containment to form pressure. Any pressure. Regardless of if it's gradiated. Exactly. First, you get the containment. Then you can form pressure within the containment. Then you can form a gas pressure gradient within the containment. But in every instance, gas pressure always, without exception, will require a container to press upon to form pressure.
Yes. Yep. So even a pressure gradient, they can invoke that, obviously, because it exists. But you still need containment to have that pressure anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. And remember, entropy dictates that heat rises with respect to a horizontal plane, and cold sinks with respect to a horizontal plane.
Yeah, and the reason why we have the gradient is because Earth isn't a static system. It's dynamic. It's always changing temperatures, right?
Yeah. But again, that's you explaining something that you don't need to. The only reason you're in this situation, you can explain why we have perspective. And you can explain why we have dynamic systems. But it isn't. It's an acceptance of the burden being flipped. if you're at that position explaining it. Now, you might, just to demonstrate that you do know what you're talking about, but it isn't necessary. That is to say, why are you explaining how gradiated pressure forms within a complex dynamic system? That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Well, because there's a claim that the sky is a bleeding vacuum. That's why. Is there anything ascribable to this? Most of the time, if you actually hear me in debate about this subject, you'll hear a few words come out of my mouth when this subject comes up. Have I made a claim about it? That's normally what you'll hear from me. Because I'm not going to defend this crap. I understand how gradiated dynamic systems work within pressure gradiated containment. Do I need to? No, it's filling up valuable space in my head. Like, understanding perspective. Shout out to Life is Short, one of my longest Patreons. Well, he has educated me in such a significant way that I can undo the Earth curve calculations with his education and knowledge. Fantastic that it was. Superlative, whatever the word is, research that he did. Second to none. And his way of educating me about it was even better. Patient, all the rest of it. However, with all that being said, hope I don't offend him, I don't need it. Once I realise, there's a point that you get beyond, that you go, so I've learnt this advanced knowledge about perspective, and I get to the point where that I recognise there isn't an Earth curve edge for a horizon, and how a flat Earth has been utilised by way of measuring it to derive mathematically this concept of an Earth curve below the surface level in mathematical Muppet vision. Well, at that point, I don't need any of the explanations in false dichotomy. Why I explain the horizon, I don't care. I don't need to. If I was to utilise the horizon, it would be to describe how we establish a horizontal plane of reference. It certainly wouldn't be to explain why boats disappear, because that serves no practical use. Now, for them, the globe numpties, their argument for how we've got an Earth curve comes with arguments that are self-fulfilling. They only serve one purpose, to prove that there's an Earth curve. Does it have any actual use? Does it have any practical use? No. So when we make our positive claims, they're life and death. Get this wrong, die at sea. Get it right, find your way home. As demonstrated, as utilised, as still used to this day. So there's the standards when I describe how the horizon's utilised for a flat plane of reference to measure for your survival. What's that? How useful is boats going over the horizon, whether or not I can debunk it with perspective or not? It isn't. All it does is affirm a religious belief. It doesn't have a practical use. Meanwhile...
Yeah, and I mean, you saw the debate I had with all these pilots, or at least that ex-military pilot. These people are globers treating the Earth as if it's flat and stationary, and they still think it's a globe.
Yeah. But as we're also hearing, more and more people are self-committing to the fact it's a belief. They'll ask you in return of their globe belief that they seem to understand they have, why you would believe in a flat Earth. Like, so what, in juxtaposition to your belief of a spherical surface derived from flat plane measurements? Well, I don't have a belief at all, but you've got a globe belief, and most of them realise it. Now, pilots can square that circle because it's a belief. Yeah, I believe Earth's a sphere. How'd you fly on it? Flat.
Columbus did the same, didn't he? You know, when he used his quadrant, you know, to measure angles to the stars to navigate the seas. He thought he was sailing round a globe, but he was measuring angles to move from A to B.
Yeah, he's measuring with respect to a plane, getting angles to stars off a plane, finding his location on flat maps that have been derived from those same angle measurements. So the world's being navigated and expanded flat, but then you ask the captain if it's a sphere and he says yes, and suddenly Earth's a sphere. You're like, no. Is it a tomato?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is it a banana? Yep.
They're screwed. It's so over.
That was one of the lines that got a laugh in the comments. So some guy was like, I can wrap the latitude lines that are conceptual around my globe. You're like, I can wrap them around a banana.
Concave banana.
Yeah. That one gentleman demonstrated after you get the angles off a flat plane, you can put them around any shape you want. He demonstrated that quite well. Do you remember him?
Yeah, the way they
They're all doing it. Sorry, mate. They're all doing it. I had one yesterday or the day before, on that conversation, and he was adamant that, well, it doesn't matter. The latitude works on a globe, so it doesn't matter how it was measured. You can still use it and find your way around the globe. Yeah, but it's a flat Earth elevation angle, mate. That's how it's measured. Well, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We can use it on the globe, and that's all that matters. That. He wouldn't move from it. They can't get their head around it. They don't want to accept it.
At that stalemate, I'd ask them, okay, well, if you're saying you can use it on a globe, where'd you get the globe measurements from? Yeah, it's the same place, isn't it?
I love when you do that, because then they are screwed.
Yeah. Also, correct me if I'm wrong,
Right, because
but when they
Hold on,
actually
John. Yeah, Angels and John.
when they actually got the latitude from angles and longitude or whatever, is it true that they literally could have wrapped that around anything, any shape, and had it work? Like, say they put it around a diamond Earth, would it, like,
Yeah,
technically it would still
I've
work,
seen someone
right?
do it. Yes, to answer your question. We had one guy on that had all sorts of models where he took the base measurements, that's latitude with respect to Polaris angle measurements, and he put them onto all sorts of different shapes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, John.
I gotta see that.
yeah, calculation is meaningless, right? You need measurement, and your calculation can't contradict your measurement, or it's meaningless. Measurement is taking the conceptual unit and applying it to something you can reference in reality, and that's what you experience with your five senses. That's why it's so powerful.
Yes. It's an entirely different standard. It's no longer subjective. Not that
And that's why Danny Faulkner got stuck.
we even had a visit from Matthew Learns on Friday. Yeah, with a bit more organisation. When AJ's next around, I'll have a little chat with him, see what we can do, see if we can streamline it a bit.
Danny Faulkner, the guy with the deer in the headlights with Nathan Thompson, asking him, how do you have gas pressure with that containment?
No, but the best was Adam. When Adam put his hand right to the fire, put his feet to the fire, and said, when you have to deal with something in reality, then what?
It's good in a way because I'm not going to necessarily say this is true. I'll ask Adam if this has a contributing element to it. But while you guys have been helping me edit my book, one of the reasons for the extremely high degree of spit and polish that's being put on this book, if you've got, let's just segue a little bit. This book's going to come out before the end of the year, right? It will eventually get finished. I'll probably announce it a bit hastily before getting everyone to read their way through it. But the standards elevated way, way beyond what I had expectations for this book, right? To the point where it's going to be a really high standard, like a reference book. Yeah? Well, to get it to that standard, it's taken things like Adam at least once saying, I'm not going to give a verbatim quote, but close enough. Danny Faulkner will be reading this book and he'll want to rip it apart at every missing full stop, right? Now, when I say that, I'm not inferring that the standards of polish are merely a typographical standard. They're not, right? It's the actual information that's going into it that's being polished up to a very, very high degree. Hence the extra time that it's taking. Because at the point that I got everyone reading it, I was happy to publish it, as was my publisher. We were both happy, and we're like, well, have a read of it if you can find any spelling errors. And then we're like ripping up huge sections of it and rewriting it. Now, that's perfectly fine because, that's what you got to do if you're going to take a book to the next level. So yeah, if your expectations are high, good, keep them there. I'm not going to try and dampen them in any way, because even my own expectations have been sort of far exceeded in terms of what it's going to end up being, which is great. But that's taken to bring it back onto the subject matter in hand. People like Danny Faulkner writing a book, and then the reaction that we have had to his book, where we've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and laughed at sections of it, or pointed out the failings and the missing information that should have been in a certain section but weren't, or weren't referenced till page 86 when they were relevant on page 7. You know, things like that are all being heavily scrutinised in my book, which is great for me. But like I say, it takes someone like Danny to motivate Adam in that way, I feel. Perhaps I'll ask him.
I tell you what, the standard that I've seen from the couple that I've been in, the level of citation required to make any statement is past what you would expect in a peer-reviewed journal.
Yeah, where I've occasionally gone to Google, or maybe I've gone to Alternative by Design, QEs come along and go, no, this needs to be Harvard. I'm like, well, I haven't got a Harvard reference. Well, I'll get you one. You're like, oh, okay, well, suddenly you're like looking at these citations going, wow, the standard's gone up by a factor of 3, 4, 5x in terms of the quality of the references. Because, well, you probably know if you're an audience member, I'm quite lazy when it comes to references. I do have some, but on the whole, well, you know, I'll look them up on the fly if need be, and a lot of them were looked at by the publisher. So obviously these definitely didn't meet QE standards. He's like, no, there's better standards that you can not easily attain, that he could help me easily attain. I say I couldn't easily attain them, but he could.
Yeah, like when I just wanted to use their story, where I didn't have any primary source evidence for that claim, I couldn't use their story for how they come to believe it was a globe. Or, you know, it's definitely a different level of claim.
Yes. It's hard to focus with the sub bass from your mic coming in as you started talking. I don't know what the hell's wrong with your mic. It's horrendous for the first 3 or 4 seconds. Like boom, boom, the whole room shaking. I'm like, bloody hell, what's going on? Anyway. So it did throw me slightly.
You're lucky you're his favorite. If it was me, forget it.
Well, it's one of those you say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. I'm just crunching my arms on my chair, you know, digging nails in. It's all good. Almost 100 people watching, 99 people watching. So thank you very much if you've shared the show. Please share it if you've not shared it already. The only reason we've got almost 100 people watching is because people share the show. So yeah, thank you for smashing the share button. My daughter informs me that if I say the words like and subscribe on the finished, rendered, edited, whatever, not edited, but finished, rendered live stream, when I say those words, it makes the thumbs up and subscribe button flash when you say like and subscribe. So I noticed it and I'm like, Eleanor, how'd you get this to work? Because I watched another YouTuber and, like I say, the like button flashed. I'm like, how do I make it do that? I want that. So she looked it up for me, and I'm reliably informed that just by saying it, the AI bots will catch that you're saying something that's so common that it's common enough for the AI to realise you've said it, take it out of the transcript, and then make those buttons flash when I say like and subscribe. So we'll see if it works. I've incorporated it into the intro. And new slides. There's a lot of new stuff going on Flat Earth Debate. It's all very exciting. He says, as there's no video to cover at about the halfway mark where I'd normally pick up a video. Has anybody got a video that we wanted to cover today? If not, we're going to be covering a boring lecture. I say boring, 10th man provided it.
I've got debates I did against 2 PhDs on Coriolis, which is pretty good, entertaining, if you want.
Yeah. Is anybody in the mod team? Can someone get it to me in Skype?
Yeah, of course, man. Angels of Light, just put it in the main text chat.
Cool. Can you stick it in Master B?
Yep, no worries, we'll do.
We did talk about this earlier, but I would like to actually show it. So, just to make it a little bit more pretty. This is what we were referencing, or what Craig Click OK was referencing earlier. This is Level Earth Observer, or Leo. Tommy knew the globe was BS back in 2010. And I believe this is just the... Oh no, this is the full thing. This is 28 minutes or whatever long. So I'm going to share this so you can all have a look at Leo's exposure of this now, however many year old video. Very old. There it is. There's a link going by in the live stream chat to Level Earth Observer's video. Maybe we'll get into this as well. We'll have a look. But in the meantime, hopefully Mush will give us, what's it called? Angels of Light debate. Where was it published? Did you publish it yourself?
Yeah, I debated them on TikTok, then I put the video together. Yeah.
Okay, let's check it out.
It's in a Master B. It's in a
Thank
Master
you.
B, Nathan.
I got it. Thank you very much. How do I make this? How do I make the sound? I've got the line closed.
And what happens?
Does the Earth rotate
Almost immediately, you're going downhill.
Relative to the center, sure.
And so you
how
get
come the ball
faster and
doesn't
faster.
deviate like the merry-go-round?
If the world is round, every...
Horrendous. Sorry.
Not that
You can
far.
calculate the deviation force that you would have. Yeah, the Earth is really big. That's why the Earth's rotation rate, even though you keep citing this mystical number of
That's
1,000
why you don't
whatever.
have to- Am I rotating with the Earth that I'm standing on?
Yeah.
Does the Earth rotate 1,500 feet in 1 second?
Relative to the center, sure.
So how come the ball doesn't deviate like the merry-go-round? That's not that
You can
far.
calculate the deviation force that you would have, and when
much
it's on
will
the
it be?
equator, the force will be, the force will be 0.
Do you believe in Coriolis? Does the Earth have Coriolis?
Absolutely.
Oh, where?
What do you mean where? It happens everywhere on the Earth. It just depends on the direction that you throw things in.
Where's everywhere?
Whole globe.
Let's put a plane at the equator, and we're going to fly with the rotation of the Earth. We set the airspeed to be 500 miles per hour, so roughly half what the Earth rotates in an hour.
Right. Airspeed, sure.
Yep. So, does the plane moonwalk backwards now because it's going slower than the Earth?
No, but it's moving at 500 miles per hour airspeed, right? And the airspeed is roughly the same as ground speed.
Let's do a 180 with the plane, go against the rotation of the Earth.
Again, if your airspeed is 500 miles per hour, then your ground speed will be approximately 500 miles per hour. Again, depending on the wind.
So in other words, the Earth relative to the plane is stationary, right? Please.
No.
When I land a plane on a north to south runway at the equator, do I have to chase the runway sideways?
Again, you're moving relative.
John, please, can you keep your mic closed? Because you're making this,
Yeah, no.
this show's pretty horrendous with that sound constantly. It's still... It's awful. Yeah, you're opening your mic every time you do. It's just this horrible, horrendous, distorted sound. Okay, you almost had the QE, the planes flying backwards. Did you have him in a position where he was only referencing it versus 500-mile-an-hour ground speed with the 500-mile-an-hour plane? So you've got him effectively stopping the plane, right?
Yeah. So basically, he's describing the Earth as stationary right now, and he can't admit it because But I did in other debates. I've had a person say, "Yeah, the plane would go backwards."
Yeah, it's one of QE's tricks.
Oh, really? That's so funny. Because I came up with that myself as well. That's funny.
Yeah, it takes an exemplary understanding of Coriolis to take them there. I don't want to take people there. QE does. You do, obviously. I don't like it because it's too deep into the begging the question fallacy for me. But QE likes to play with his food. So do you, by the looks.
Relative to the air, and the air is roughly stationary relative to the ground.
So in other words, you're describing the Earth as stationary right now. Okay, check this out. If I hover a drone above a spinning merry-go-round, does the merry-go-round spin underneath the drone?
Okay.
No,
it doesn't, because the merry-go-round is not moving the air around it.
Okay,
that drone
so now,
is coupled to the air, which is coupled to the Earth rotation, not the rotation of the merry-go-round.
So no drift.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that where it goes?
Correct. So
right.
now if we
is that true?
Yes. So now
right. When you spin a merry-go-round, does the air around the merry-go-round swirl around and everybody starts to fly towards it?
Hang on 1 second.
No,
so
it did not.
Okay.
The merry-go-round is actually a good example of Coriolis. Try
This guy won't shut up. You're leading him.
to throw a ball somebody
because it's actually
in the merry-go-round across.
He will not shut up. What's his name? George Physics.
Jorge Physics, yeah.
Jorge Physics, you're being led. Yeah, this is prick behaviour by a prick who's going to get annihilated any second. But if I just keep jabbering on about your example you were leading me with, you won't get to the conclusion, right?
Lost away.
Yeah, so why does it work? Why the drone?
Yeah, you would get accused of talking through him, right? Even though it's your bleeding example, while he tells you what a great example of Coriolis and merry-go-round is. It's not your example, though, is it, Jorge, you asshole? Your opponent was leading you. This is just prick behaviour. People who are socially undisciplined. Yeah? Oh, I'm losing, so I'll take control of the example.
Yeah,
Right
on
now,
TikTok it's a little crazy, though.
Sorry, say again, Angels.
Yeah, on TikTok it's a little crazy. It's not as, how can I say, structured, but yeah.
Well, people just assume that I'm some evil man when I'll point these things out to the opponent when they do it. It's like, what, you've got to be passive when someone does this to you? No, man, I'll get properly aggressive with them and point out what they're doing. And as everyone around starts shouting you down and you take your very firm stance in the correct position, everyone suddenly deems you as evil. Like, no, this tactic won't fly. You know, this edit that you've put together is the way it is because this guy has taken your example you were leading him with and started to tell you, the person making the example, what a wonderful example of Coriolis a roundabout is. At which point you're like, you're an unreasonable prick. Why would I even be having this conversation with you? Because you don't want to listen to this example. You don't want to be led. You want to be telling me how wonderful my example is. To make your point with, I was making the example.
Equator, does it deviate sideways 1,500 feet every second?
It is going at the same rotation rate as the Earth. It is coupled to the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is rotating with...
How come Coriolis works on a rotating system but not the Earth?
It works.
Yeah, you had the win there. So no Coriolis. Asking him why there isn't one on Earth. It's like, no, that's your conclusion. So there isn't Coriolis on Earth because there's only one reference frame then. So no drift.
Yeah.
Works on the Earth. It's just Omega.
How long have you been doing this, though, Angels? How long have you been debating people?
The end of this year it'll be, the end of this year will be 2 years I've been a flat earther. So.
Right. So don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. I'm being hypercritical. The fact that you could lead somebody into the point where they're having to accept that the plane's basically stationary in the air, that's pretty high level, especially with Coriolis, which is a bugger to debate with. It's just because there's so many gaps where this George or Jorge guy can do what he did. Because it's complex, right? You've got to get an example with a framework laid down with the premise of a globe Earth turning or not turning, depending on if they're denying or continuing to claim Coriolis. And how you've got it positioned is all tentative and can be ruined by them just rumpusing you by telling you how wonderful a fucking roundabout is when you're making the example with it. So it can be all lost in terms of the mind's eye of the observer in the example, which can get complicated if you're not careful. And that delicate nature can be very easily upset by your opponent, which just annoys me. You know, when it happens, it annoys me on your behalf when it's happening and it's not even me doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but dude, like, it's such a simple concept, right? If the Earth is spinning and something's in the atmosphere, there should be a drift. It's that simple, right? If they claim the atmosphere just magically moves along with the Earth, there's no Coriolis. You're denying Coriolis every time you say the atmosphere just conserves momentum with the Earth so that it appears stationary. That's disproving Coriolis.
Yeah. So half the battle, in my humble opinion, obviously your journey's different to mine, is actually tying the opponent in the first instance to their claim. So I like to use things that are asserted to science by them, just for the double whammy of getting them to undo their own rhetoric of what they think science is as a bonus. But that's me. But in that regard, you go to Foucault or the gyro or the pendulum because it makes the claim for them. The gyro is claiming to deviate because it's on a separate non-inertial turning reference frame. The pendulum is claimed to drift and knock the dominoes over because it only moves back and forth and the Earth is claimed to turn underneath. That's the only reason it deviates, because pendulums don't deviate. Gyroscopes don't deviate. That's the principle they're employing. So what's the pendulum doing? It's just going back and forth. No, it isn't. It's knocking the dominoes over. No. That's because it's claimed Earth's a separate non-inertial turning reference frame moving underneath the back and forth motion of the pendulum to give the appearance that it's drifting to knock dominoes one after the next over. It's not. The claim is that it's drifting because Earth turns underneath as a separate reference frame. The moment they say, well, it's all moving together, well, no drift then, as you just identified. So like I say, the trick is to get them to tie themselves to two reference frames at the start of the process. Get them to define what they suggest Earth has as the claim it turns underneath, proven by their claim of Coriolis. So you have to kind of tie them down to that. But it's difficult because you're asserting their position for them, which some would say is a straw man if they don't understand it, because they're thick. But you're trying to lead them to make their own claim in the correct way, because half of them don't know their own bloody claim. So this is such a massive uphill battle. My hat is off to you for doing it.
Yeah, also, right, Nathan, what they try to do is they don't even know what Coriolis is. They redefine Coriolis on a globe. They say, oh, if I'm at the equator and I throw a ball to the Tropic of Cancer, then there will be a drift because it left my hand at 1,000 miles an hour and it's going to be at 700 miles an hour. Like, they don't even know what Coriolis is.
Yeah, we did a whole year of shows on this where we were defining the concept you've just tried to describe. It ended up getting a name. So when they redefine the rotation based on axial forces, that's globiolus effect. That's what we redefined it as.
Yeah.
They say it's
is
the
this any better on my mic? I'm sorry.
They say it's well, at least your mic's not making a horrendous racket. They say it's the conservation of angular momentum. Go ahead, John.
I heard north, south, equator, and Tropic of Capricorn used. How do you measure those things?
With a flat plane, angles to Polaris, latitude lines. Tropics are measured with angles to the sun.
Then why are they appealing to them?
Because they're going to have to measure Earth flat to make their claims.
And also, they don't even know that.
Say again?
Yeah, they don't know it came from just angles.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, if somebody appeals to having conceptual latitude lines wrapped around a globe and won't concede that we can measure them, the only place you can take them then is to ask them where they got the globe measurements from.
Can't use angles on a globe.
No, well, they make the globe with the angles, don't they? That's the point. So where'd you get your globe from? Well, with these sticks and shadows or with Al-Biruni. And you're like, well, no, that's measuring a flat Earth.
Yeah, so if Al-Biruni did, was at the Black Swan location, what, would the Earth now be 250,000 mile radius?
No. 10th Man got it in the neck when this first came out for doing that. Yes, that is a natural consequence that, yes, you may highlight. You do have our permission. But again, you've got to first point out that what's Al-Biruni doing? He's doing a dip angle measurement. Well, what's a dip angle measurement? Hopefully it's given it away already in the fact that the word angle's in there. It's the same as the Earth curve maths. It's a differential from surface level that he measures the height of the mountains with respect to. So he's measuring the mountains off a flat plane, going up them, and then calculating the difference from that surface level, the dip that he perceives, from eye level. That's the dip. So what do you need to do that calculation of a dip? Well, you need the difference between the surface level that's flat that gave you the height of the mountains and the eye level that's parallel with the surface level that you measured flat to get the mountain's height off. When you go up the mountain and measure your height with respect to the surface level in feet or meters. So you've got quite a few flat Earth prerequisites in Al-Biruni's flat Earth measurement to suggest that you're on a sphere with a radius derived by differential calculations from surface level to eye level. Make sense? You need a flat Earth to be Al-Biruni.
Did you say go up the mountain?
Yeah. Everyone measures Earth flat. You won't find a spherical measurement example. There aren't any. There's only hijacking of flat Earth measurements and relabeling as Earth curve. But they're flat Earth measurements in all instances. Earth's measured flat. We get back onto Coriolis. There's only about a minute left.
Denied it 6 times. So you're saying the atmosphere moves with the Earth? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the atmosphere is coupled to the Earth.
Because he just said that the Earth, the atmosphere is velcroed to the Earth. How come clouds move in all directions? And they're part of the atmosphere.
So relative to the ground, they're not moving that fast, but there are local disturbances in the atmosphere, man. We're not saying that the atmosphere is a rigid body. It is a gas. Right? This is a gas.
So again, does the helicopter velcro itself to the atmosphere?
The helicopter, when it is on the surface of the Earth, it is moving with the Earth. So it has that velocity, that inertia. So when you lift it up, it still has that velocity. It has inertia. It's going to stay.
Yeah, I can't play it with music on it. Okay. Yeah, you're into the weeds now with this guy. The moment he relinquishes the second reference frame, you just have to point that out. So no Coriolis then. Earth and atmosphere move as one? Yeah, you're right. How do we have north, south, east surface winds then? But ultimately there's no Coriolis, which is their claim. They must have 15 degrees an hour of deviation. If they don't, there's no claim proving that they spin.
You know what he told me?
Did you know that he conceded?
I don't know, to go first, really. I'm going to go with John, because he's my favourite.
I was just going to say, did you notice that he conceded gas? That his atmosphere was gas in that?
Yes.
That was kind of fun. I giggled to myself when he did that.
Yeah, and it could have been a tangent Angels took him to. But at this point, I'm more inclined to focus on the fact that you've got the guy in the weeds. Yes, he's in a contradiction, but you need to cut his head off. So no Coriolis then. If Earth and atmosphere move as one, there's only one reference frame, isn't there?
Yeah. And like, this is what I was going to say. He told me, he goes, oh, but the Earth has been spinning for like billions of years. Therefore, it's like a blender. The blender doesn't start off spinning everything in it. It eventually catches up and just all moves together. I'm like, well, then there's no Coriolis.
And since the wind is moving with the Earth.
Yeah, I can't play with music on it. Anyway, yes, very good. I assume that's where you went afterwards. But yeah, I mean, considering you've only been doing this a couple of years, you certainly with Coriolis, you're extremely advanced in your argumentation.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Cool. Was there another one that we wanted to watch? It was the Level Earth Observer video, wasn't it?
Is the world round?
I've already got this queued up somewhere else, I think. Here we go.
You should be getting faster and faster.
Turn your media player off, whoever this is.
However, in the test,
turn your media player off.
I must have two. Sorry, Tommy. I'll switch off.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't listen to this.
Gone.
What? He's gone. Call back. Skype back. You can Skype us on play.radio.uk, but turn your media player off so that you're listening on Skype. Otherwise, what you hear, which is being broadcast, is...
Sound familiar? Be sure to mute the page you are currently watching. Right? I say it in every intro.
a couple of seconds behind what you hear on Skype. Okay, but try again. 50 quid to anybody who can prove to me that the world is round right now. Between...
Right, I hate his phraseology. Round and flat are not mutually exclusive. You can have a flat round penny.
Now, and well, the course of this show. And what I'm on about here is trusting your own judgment and trusting your own perception and not falling back on what you get told by...
half right.
That's not a true dichotomy either.
No. Yeah, that's what I said, half right. It's like, yeah, don't believe what you just told. But perception, no, we got measurements.
Yeah, but the flat or round, it's flat or curved. If you want a true dichotomy, that's what it would be.
And here's the phrase that everyone uses, the powers that be. In this case, it's academics and scientists.
This is straight up feast of nonsense so far. Before everyone else, he's peddling feast of nonsense into the ether of the public, isn't he? Through talk radio.
If you'd been born 500 years ago, then you would have stuck to what you know, the world is flat. Pictures from space show the world to me to look like a disc, a flat disc. Does planet Earth...
He just said, pictures from space to me make the world look like a flat disc. Straight up, controlled opposition narrative. This guy's a shill, straight up shill. He's pumping in the flat version of Feast of Nonsense pre-25th. When did everyone start arriving here? 2014?
2014, yeah.
So 2010, he's pumping it right into the ears of everybody who's listening to this in just the right way to have the Feast of Nonsense come out the other side 5 years later.
From space, look to you as if it is round. Assuming the pictures were taken from outer space, there are plenty of people who believe that the whole business of going to the moon and even going into outer space, which is getting beyond the atmosphere, has never happened.
See? It's seeded with the idea that you can go beyond the atmosphere. So we're retaining the idea that there's atmosphere that we can go beyond, and it's just whether or not anybody's gone beyond it. What, beyond the sphere-shaped air oxymoronic atmosphere? It's just whether or not they've gone there. Whether or not they've gone to the moon. Space is still real. Atmosphere is still real. It's just whether or not anyone's gone beyond it. This is pure feast of nonsense.
And the photos are all faked. Whether they're real or whether they're fake, the pictures of Earth from space do not look to me...
See? It's about whether or not the pictures are real. From space, pauses. They've definitely got a space then, Tommy.
The space that violates natural law?
Yeah. But he's arguing about whether or not the pictures from that second law of thermodynamics violation area of volume that the area he's calling atmosphere would all be dissipating into are real or not. So we can argue about whether or not they're real pictures in Narnia, where no one's going and no one can go because it's a place that isn't real. But in this narrative, it's real, and we're just into the false dichotomy of whether or not the photos are real, the cameras are real, the rockets are real. This is the genesis of the current wave. People like Tommy putting out the Feast of Nonsense. Now, no offence to Level Earth Observer if he thinks this is good. Check it out, look how wonderful Tommy is. He knew back then... No. Half the false dichotomy arguments are starting here by the looks of things. He's predating me.
To be a picture...
Yeah,
Go on.
I'm just going to say, it sounds like he invented the Feast of Nonsense.
This is straight up from the Flat Earth Society. If you're going to control the opposition, you've got to lead it. So you start up the arguments that benefit you the best if they're argued about. Keep the people arguing about them. Have neutral outcomes as the only outcome. Retain all of the main parts of the heliocentric religion, as long as the basis of it is retained in both arguments. Pizza pie floating up in a sky vacuum. Like this guy just said he saw pictures of from space. The way Tommy phrased it, he'd seen a pizza pie in space. That's what he said. Lying shit. But he put that lie in there, didn't he? So 5 years before, he's so bold as to tell you that he saw a pizza pie from space. And then go on to question whether or not the pictures from space that we do get are real or not, when he's told you he saw a pizza pie from there. Like I say, I don't know if Level Earth Observer thinks this is good. I haven't read his narrative and his editorial below, and there's no comment from him. He's just playing it unedited, which is fine. But I don't deem this as good. Shout out to Free, who became a member. Really appreciate it. And us so far for hitting the super chat. You can offer this FE video analysis as service for FE YouTubers who would like to pay for lessons to sharpen their FE debating skills. Guitar teachers offer lessons for students in the same fashion. What you're doing is suggesting that I should give the equivalent of guitar lessons for flat earthers. Okay, I'll take that under advisement. Thank you for the suggestion.
Oh, you
Yeah,
know,
what's
I
wrong with
actually was
that?
thinking about that too. Like, I was hoping when I joined Flat Earth, like if there were Flat Earth coaches, honestly.
I wouldn't feel right doing that. If someone was to suggest to me, if halfway through that, I thought he was going to go on to say something like how to run a good YouTube channel or how to do good transitions and keep a live stream running nicely and smoothly or something like that. But when he was like sharpen their FE debating skills, I don't see a practical application for that beyond what I'm doing right now. I can turn a profit from it. I can make my mortgage payments disappear almost each month by doing this. So yeah, from that point of view, in a very, very limited, hard-working, having to slog my guts out capacity, I can turn it into some financial remuneration for the work that I do in that regard. Now, if I train someone how to play a guitar, I can literally, I personally can tell them spots where they can apply to the council to play that guitar and earn money from it and earn a living. Now, if I either do the same and say, come to my School of Flat Earth, shout out to Mitchell from Australia, and you will learn how to debate Flat Earth and win. And I give them the very best arguments. What for their coin do they get? Where do they turn that investment back into money? I'd feel like I was robbing them.
Well, you're not offering them something that they can gain monetarily, but you are offering them the peace of mind of being able to win arguments.
They can have that for free. Just watch my ads. Give me a super chat. You know what I mean? Like I so far did. You know, if you would consider that you are that student, I'd rather offer it, not because I've been pressured by people who say that the truth shouldn't be monetized. I don't believe in that either. If I wanted to put all this behind a paywall, I could. I'm just not so inclined because I want popularity. I'm a YouTuber. I want to gain subscribers and show people that I'm earning a living from the ad revenue. I mean, I'm nowhere near that now. I rely on so far super chats. You know what I mean? That's the way it is. But that's the remuneration I seek, and that's what I get. And the education is offered from all and sundry who have done the research, who stand shoulder to shoulder with me while I'm doing the live shows. But as for offering it as a service, even I could argue, no one's going to like this, that I'd be better off teaching them heliocentrism so they could at least pass an exam and then put it on a whatever you do before you've got a resume that you go to a job with, a CV, right? At least you could, if I taught you how to understand and regurgitate heliocentrism, you could pass an exam with it. It's got some, in the modern society, useful application that might be recognised. Peace of mind.
Right, but how are you?
Go on.
How are you going to teach them heliocentrism without the measurements?
That's advanced heliocentrism. You don't need that to pass an exam. You might need it to navigate. I mean, I'm nowhere near or inclined to get qualified to teach people how to navigate with celestial navigation. I can regurgitate the basics to demonstrate my point quite easily and happily with a very limited understanding. But would I train, as my sister did, on how navigation works and then functionally put it into practical application on a boat? No. Would I do that and then further to that learn how to train others in it? Definitely not. But that's, again, what I could use Flat Earth by extension for something that has got a useful practical application. But that's not called Flat Earth, that's called celestial navigation, that ipso facto uses a Flat Earth.
You could create your own exam for Flat Earth.
But for what?
Well, you're writing a book, and you could extrapolate that into an exam if they take the book and learn everything.
I don't know. This stands so far against what I'm for. You know, if I was employing somebody, I've done recruitment. I was a recruitment consultant for a number of years, and what I needed from a potential temporary employee is for them to show me that they have done what I need them to do, that they have experience in doing that. Now, the capability of potentially learning how to do it under training isn't what I used to require as a temporary consultant. Now, if someone comes to me with a qualification that shows that they have the capability of passing an exam, I don't care. can you do this Excel task for this person that needs it doing while this person's on holiday? You can, then I will pay you to do that. You can't, then sling your hook. So where is the practical use for the flat Earth exam? There isn't one. Now, I know there's going to be... Go on.
There's many exams that have no practical use. The point is, it's an exam. I was just basing that on the fact you said, well, you could teach heliocentric to pass an exam, so why not do it the other way around? Make your own exam.
Because I'm not part of a governing body of examiners that would be recognised in a GCSE type standard or an A-level or higher standard. And if it was, then it would be absolutely worth doing. If there was a qualification in something that was attributable to flat Earth in the title, and it was recognised, like you say, you don't necessarily need something that's useful. There's plenty of people out there with history on their CV when they're doing masonry or whatever. There's something that's got sod all to do with it. But they just show that they're capable of learning with their qualifications. Now, if flat Earth happened to be on the list and was recognised and governed by a proper examining board, then yeah, would I be a flat Earth teacher? Probably not. My dad was a teacher. It drove him nuts. No thanks. But I could see how others might, and if I can therefore potentially offer training that would get somebody closer to passing that exam that could be recognised and potentially might assist in them getting a job, then yeah, I could then see the argument for doing it. Man, this is a superb value that you got out of your $10 super chat there. It's developed about 10-15 minutes of discussion there so far. Thank you again for the $10. Also, shout out to Phoenix Rising 86, who gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much indeed. I'm all for putting things into practical application, though, and, I can argue the toss about how Earth is flat with celestial navigation and put really severe implications on those facts, like life and death implications.
Yeah, but you do it every day in the show. People could get it for free. I consider myself a flat Earth student.
Yeah. And I'm a total whore. For a few quid, I'll drive halfway across the country. I did last week.
How about you could create the exam as multi-guess or multiple choice, as some people prefer it?
I don't know. The idea that you have to be, coached in something that will give value, I don't know. That just doesn't seem. I don't see how you're connecting that. Education has its own intrinsic value, and if you're teaching them something that they didn't understand prior, then there's value in that. I don't see why you're denying that.
I'm not denying it. I'm just saying I'm more happy to do it in the way that we are doing it. Shout out to JMiles24. He says, "Oh, Nathan, knock it off and just put a test at the end of the book. If they fail, they die. If they pass, they may continue to live out a beautiful life on flat Earth. Simple."
That's a good idea.
If they pass, they die. Oh, that's very funny. If they fail, they die, I should say. But yeah, very amusing. Shout out to Duncan McLeod. I would send my kids to public school just to troll the science classes and science teachers. I got some funny super chats today. Thank you very much for all the support. Very good. Okay, I think I'm going to round out on that note. Unless there's anything else anyone wants to add before we go to the after show.
Is my mic sounding better?
Miles better, yeah. It's not making a horrendous noise. You listen back to the first half of this show. It was terrible. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
Ever straight from iPhone again.
You what now?
I can guarantee you it's not because of the brand of the phone as much as it's an issue with the mic or the software.
Yeah, well, try going into settings and see what you can do.
Fine now. It's fine.
I did. I did through the whole show. That's all I was doing, because all I wanted to do was point out that every argument that the guy that was arguing for Coriolis was making, he was using a flat plane with north, south, east, west, hemisphere, all that stuff. He was using a flat plane for it.
Right. Like you say, you're just listening out for the trigger words.
That's what I wanted to ask you. This whole science thing, are they ever going to understand when QE asks that question, what's going on?
If they understand that it's not a scientific question, then the validity that they're claiming goes away. So no, they can't understand that one.
I mean, but they listen to the show. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they listen to the show, but they have an authority of these people in white lab coats telling them it is science. They're just, it's their authority, and they believe their authority. They don't accept what we say.
I have faith that one day, somebody's going to spew out the right answer and say, this has nothing to do with science.
Yeah, like when QE says the right answer is, excuse me, that's a category error. Yeah, they're never going to do that. Recognizing that it's a category error, as John just said, is relinquishing the basis that they've got scientists backing their religion. So they can't, can they, Neil? Science says it's a globe.
Did he mean to drop just then?
Probably not.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. You can't say, as a heliocentrist, you can't say that heliocentrism is not science, because if you do, then what are you basing this on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So half the reason the housekeeping questions have got science in them at all is because they're making that claim of science incorrectly. So if you try and catch them out in a category error, if they know it's a category error, they wouldn't be in the situation where they're appealing to science for their belief in a globe in the first place. They don't know. That's why they're being asked. It's a sure bet that they're going to find themselves in that category error, exposing themselves as not knowing what science is. That's the whole point. That's the reason you ask. Because it's very, very, very unlikely that they're going to go, scientific evidence for a shape that I'm making a positive claim for. Surely that would be under the category of mathematics and measurements, as opposed to scientific validity based on cause and effect reasoning. Surely that question's a category error. Said nobody ever from the Glurf side of this discussion.
I used to think it was funny when you would tell them to go to a maths forum, when they were wanting to talk about measurements.
Yeah, how times have changed.
I like when they say, give me the equation. Somebody said that the other day.
Yeah, because that's what they rely on.
That's not a measure.
Exactly, John. They're not using measurements. They're extrapolating out or calculating in their globe where it doesn't exist. Where are your calculations? I don't really need any. We just measure Earth flat, is our current response.
Yeah, a calculation by its very definition is not a measurement. It can utilize measurements like with PV equals nRT, but you need references to tie those variables to make it legitimate.
Now, what's the equation?
What's your theory?
Well, I can give you an equation. Like the invariance arc of a differential between eye level and surface level, if you really wanted an equation, I could give you one. What would that do?
Prove Earth's flat.
Yeah, like all of their equations they think they got have flat Earth measurements in them. So are they globe calculations?
No. I mean, you can call them globe calculations, but I can't remember how you phrase this. Your calculations can't stand in defiance of the original measurement. So when you say globe measurements, sometimes I'll vaguely allude to that. You need the flat Earth measurements to create your globe. You're like, when I think about it, that's not strictly true. You're not creating a globe, are you? I mean, you're mathematically inventing a model on paper that's called the globe, but this idea that you can create a globe by these transpositions of angles to curves when the angle's actually the protractor you're measuring through is silly when you actually break it down. Yeah, you can do that, but it's silly.
Yeah, it's like saying the globe is measured flat.
Yeah, it's silly. It's nonsensical. But also simultaneously the world belief that everybody has, as weird as that may sound, to say, well, that's just stupid. But it's also the basis of your religion.
Yeah, it's losing respect for the plane of reference and then applying a reference to something that you can't reference. I don't even know how to describe it anymore. I can't conceptualize a globe to even begin to try to understand it.
Well, I've got these diagrams on the most recent slide reel that's going up on the Hangout and to the audience now, where I've picked the best ones that visually describe it. So like this one I got from, it's actually audio related. If you look, the lines actually converge on the ear. Not that it's relevant, but the way that the angle describing this is then wrapped around you with a sphere is just a way of visually kind of understanding that which we're currently talking about diagrammatically. You can say, yeah, I got it. Yeah, you're forming an angle with the line of sight. And in this case, you could picture that this guy's looking at a star. And then you can describe the angles being wrapped around him with the sphere that they've got. And then you can turn those angles into projected points upon that sphere. If you've got another bigger sphere that represents the angle he first looked at with respect to the plane of reference. So it kind of, I think all of these diagrams, the ones that are currently going by on the slideshow, are all directly relevant to how we discuss things and explain how the globe's been created currently. So I'm quite pleased with this slideshow.
Yeah, right there, that one that's up is a Cartesian plane. It has X, Y, and Z axis. And there is no curvature within those. It can't be, because you can't develop any kind of relationship with the other planes of reference if it's curving. It's just, it would destroy geometry. Geometry is dependent upon that.
Exactly. Everything's going to start with that Cartesian reference plane, the horizontal plane of reference, the sea level, the ground level, the eye level. They're all the same in terms of what they're being used for when we measure Earth.
Yeah, I remember it's been a couple of weeks ago, we went to politics, and that guy introduced the Z-axis, and he thought that would cause the X and Y to curve by introducing a new axis.
Yeah, it's like the axes themselves, if you're going to have curve, they'll be described within those three coordinate systems. Like the curve will be X, Y, and Z potentially, if you've got it in three axes. But that doesn't mean that the references that you're using in the form of X, Y, and Z are going to curve, but that's what they need to happen. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's mathematically stupid.
Yes, they need surface level to deviate from surface level. What?
And remain zero and be curved all simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah. It has to be a flat baseline for the angles, but it also level needs to drop from level. That sentence doesn't make any sense. Level drop from level. That you can't
How is
do
that gonna? How can you even do that?
They can't. And when they do, they're creating a globe with the measurements and have assigned conversions to project up this globe that they think they're going to stand on and can't get angles back from. You know, they're creating tangents to it rather than measuring angles from it. So they imagine when they actually do measure that they're going to transpose it back into the plane that they've originally got the measurements from to create the globe, and then suggest that they can get it from the surface of the globe that they created mathematically, but don't, and it won't work anyway, so they have to put them back inside the globe. I mean, it's a complete mess that isn't functionally going to operate in any meaningful way beyond converting flat to globe, so you can have something converted onto the surface of the globe from a flat plane from within the globe, to have you standing on a surface that won't give you the measurements you started with, it violates them. But if you pretend that you can get them, you can put it back in the globe that you originally measured and got from those angles that don't work on the surface you created. So silly.
Yeah, and it's a mouthful too. But apparently you don't think that's worth enough to get money for.
I do. People smash the super chat. I hinted at it and people did exactly as I suggested. Like, if you see a value in the education that we put down, this channel's marked as education. I don't know if you realise that. So when you get to pick the category for what the channel basically represents as a whole, I put it down as education.
Well, it is education.
Yeah, exactly. It is. But is it something that I would tutor somebody in? I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
The sad thing is...
Go on.
The sad thing is, it's not... They've already been educated in it. It's like they've forgotten it. I forgot it. I know I did. I was taught this stuff when I was early on in school. Everybody was. You might not have been paying attention or you've forgotten it, but everybody was taught this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day someone will approach me and go, look, I want a one-on-one education on this stuff. Things like that tend to happen organically.
I think we're looking at education in the wrong way, actually. Educating somebody to think for themselves or educating them with information, two different things.
Well, we're not offering them that, though. I don't think we... By virtue of what we do, we are extending the fact that we are utilising critical thought. And in some of the videos that I produce, that process is illuminated. That is to say, you'll see the research that we do on the fly. We did it while we were semi behind the scenes with me recording us responding to Creaky. Do you remember that? I don't know if you were there or not. But on the fly, you got Adam looking stuff up and Brian and QE both looking up stuff. And, you know, it's a bit more lengthy of a process, but sort of exposing how we do that, it shows that we do have critical thought, but it's not training people in having critical thought. I wouldn't suggest we are anyway.
Yeah, it's part and parcel. It's information with the ability to use the information and think for yourself. That's more important.
I mean, I don't know if that's something that people have got naturally.
I won't disagree that it's important, that critical thought is important, but the information itself already exists. We just found it and we tied it together using critical thought. But the information is just the information. There's really no logic or reason necessary. It just is.
So if the information was available, then why didn't they figure it out sooner?
Because they're being lied to on a constant basis. So the perpetuation of the alternative is what's prevalent, not the information. Yeah, the information might be there, like the information that 10th to go out and gave to us about celestial navigation was always there. But what we got was the rumpus telling us that sextants only work on a globe. And us just not going, right, let's have a look at a sextant and what it does and how it works and what it's functionally doing. And then on TV, after that debate, you go and watch Star Wars. It's constantly brainwashed into you. Yeah, the information's there, but if you're being swayed away from it and brainwashed into not believing it even if you did come across it, like you say, you need, at a base level, critical thought to be able to sieve your way through all that stuff. And I don't know if that's something I can impart on people. I'm lucky enough to have had a very expensive education in that regard.
But then if we look at the option of the exam, that then not only tests your knowledge and your ability to hold the knowledge, but the ability to critically think. I mean, I think if you're familiar with Tesco's, have an entrance exam, which is entirely based on getting the right kind of person, not necessarily the knowledge they know.
Right.
I just feel like this is like the dancing bear. I use that analogy a lot, I know, but the people who put forth heliocentrism used surface level as a flat plane. It's in the mathematics, it's in the rhetoric, it's there. It might be an indictment of their critical thought, but you can't hold it against someone for what they're not comprehending. And the arguments that they put forward shows that they don't comprehend what they're actually saying.
Exactly. So the reason it's been fairly easy in 2024 to get where we are now is because they always were referencing a flat plane for their arguments. We just never noticed. That's the dancing bear. When they were saying sea level, you didn't go, hold on a second, you can't use sea level. You must use sea curve. We just thought, no, that's okay for them to use it and move forth with their argument about how Earth is curving based on sea level. We just didn't see it.
So in the same way that we can apply to us the dancing bear analogy, you can apply that to all scholars of the past. It's been overlooked because of its simplicity.
Exactly. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.